Okay, I think we're ready to get started now. I'm going to take my large brush, and I've already gotten it nice and wet. I don't want it to be drippy though, so I'm wiping that off on my paper towel. That's something else you need in case I forgot to mention that. So I've got the big brush, that's what I'll be putting the sky in with. But to start with, I'm going to give myself a horizon line so that I know about where I want to place my trees. So I'll take my really small liner brush here and get a little bit of my purple. And I'm going to come about halfway down on my canvas and then just give myself a little line. I'm going to make that slightly diagonal all the way across my canvas. So let me just point that out right here. And it's just going to be a guide for where our horizon's going to be. We'll put our sky in back here and the Blue Ridge Mountains in the background. And then we're also going to, once we paint the sky in, kind of create a space for our beautiful pine trees up here in the front. So now that we've got this in, let's take some light blue. I'm going to also use some lavender and maybe a little bit of dark purple. I've got all those on my brush. And I'm just going to start to brush in the sky. It'll be slightly darker up at the top. And I'm just going to start by using kind of a cross hatch just to get the colors in, and then I'll sort of smooth this out as we go along. So sort of back and forth here. And however you want to do your sky is absolutely fine. We do want it to be a little bit darker up at the top. And that sort of gives the idea of us being further up in the atmosphere. The sky looks darker. And then it'll get lighter as we come down towards our horizon. So we'll just keep adding to the color that we have here. Got a little more purple. And I'll get a little blue. And just keep brushing that in. This sky is going to look pretty dark. You can make your sky lighter if you'd like. That's absolutely fine. I don't want you to worry about your painting looking just like mine. I'm just going to guide you through the steps, and I want you to really just enjoy the process and make your painting your own. So I'm touching up my edges as I go along here. There we go. And you can keep doing the crosshatch. And anytime that you need to stop the video, if I'm going too quickly, that's the great thing about having the video, that you can slow it down or speed it up, whatever works well for you. So a little bit more purple over here. I just love these colors. I really enjoy the purple and the lavender and the blue. So I'm going to get a little bit more blue now. And start to brush that in. And once I get all the color in the sky that I want, then I'll come back in and put a few clouds. And just keep smoothing that right on in. And we're really using our imagination. I don't think we'll ever see a sky that looks this purple. But it's a beautiful color. And the next thing I'll do is grab some white. We want this to be just a little bit lighter as we get down into the sky. And we look off at the horizon. It'll be a little bit lighter. So I'm using this very long canvas today, and that'll make my painting look a little bit different. And it'll probably look a little different than yours because chances are you'll either have a square or more of a rectangle, but not this very long, thin canvas like I'm using. So a little more white over here. Hope everyone is enjoying this. I love the way that it feels to just smooth that paint on the canvas and start to see the white disappear and these beautiful colors take its place. Okay, that's nice. All right, now while the paint is still wet, let's go back to our medium brush. For me, that's this brush. And let's just put a few clouds in. You don't have to if you don't want your sky to have clouds, but I'm just going to add a few, maybe right across here. And I'm just sort of letting those fade off into the distance, and they'll be a little bit darker down at the bottom. However you want to do that is fine, but I want mine to be a little bit darker. And I'll make them a little bit lighter up at the top. And it doesn't need to be any particular way, just the idea. Just the idea. I'm just kind of smoothing that in together and letting that come across. And maybe one or two that are coming from further back in the horizon. Maybe something that comes up through the sky and off into the distance there. And maybe just a couple more over on this side. And again, they're a little bit whiter on the top, these clouds are. And as they fade off, of course, they get much more subdued and not so much white. Put a little bit more white in here. However you want to do these, or you don't have to do clouds at all. I'm just kind of dabbing those right on in. And then we don't want that to be the same color down at the bottom, so I'm going to add a little bit of purple. And just blend that in. And then once I have my purple in, then I'm just going to come with a little bit of white and add that down at the bottom. So now we've got some clouds in. We've got the lighter color down here at the horizon. And we can come back whenever we want and touch up the white in the clouds a little bit too. We might need to make it a little whiter as the paint starts to dry. It might look a little bit more lavender than we want. Okay, so now we have our background in. And let's take a little bit of the blue, and we're just going to create the idea of some mountains back here. So I've got the blue I used in the sky. I'll put some of that in. And wherever you want to start your mountains is fine. It's going to be a nice contrast. And we'll put some snow in the mountains too. We're putting that right over the lavender and coming right down to that horizon line that we created for ourselves there. And again, however you want the mountains to look. We're just putting that in right over the lavender, all the way across. In Winchester, you can definitely see the mountains. It's so, so lovely. And right over to the edge here. And I'm adding just a little bit of our lavender in. And that starts to have a very interesting color, our nice Blue Ridge Mountain color. Combination of the blue and the lavender. And maybe a little bit of white so that the mountains become paler as they fade off into the distance. There we go. Okay, great. So we'll want that to dry just a little bit. But in the meantime, let's take our small brush again. Actually, I picked up the liner brush again. It's got some water on it, which is fine. And we're going to kind of create just a space for our three trees that we're going to put right in the middle. So these trees have the look of a triangle. You might already have noticed that. So we're just going to kind of sketch in with our small brush a place for these big trees. And we'll come down to maybe 3/4 of the way down. We'll make a nice triangle for our first tree. That'll give us a good guide there. And then let's create another triangle for our middle tree. It's kind of a shorter tree. And one more over here on the right, kind of an in-between tree. And I'm just going to move over a little towards the camera. I'm sorry if my head is in the way, and I'll get it out of the way very shortly. I just want to get this third tree in here. Okay, so now we have a guide, a place where we can put our three trees in. Let me hold this up a little closer because those lines are pretty faint and you might not be able to see that from a distance really well. So there you go. You can see how I've just used my little brush and sketched in those little trees there. And now let's take our larger brush. And I've got quite a bit of water in it, so I'm making sure I get the water out. And let's take some white and also some lavender. And we're just going to sort of brush the snow in here. Just create the idea of the snow. So I'm just brushing that straight across. There'll be a little bit of sort of the idea, we're going to put some shadow in here, but of a hill. So we'll just put that in. And we can come back and touch this up with our smaller brush. But right now we're just going to create the idea of there being a little bit of a hill right here. I just feel like I need to touch up that cloud a little. It's looking a little too purple. So I'm just adding a little bit of white there to it. But don't worry, I'm not going to get too sidetracked. I'm going to come right back down here and keep brushing in our combination of white and our hint of lavender all the way across here. A little bit more over here. That canvas covered up well. There we go. Let's take a little bit of the purple and we're just going to start to create the idea of a shadow here. And this is giving the sky behind where we're going to put our pine trees in a chance to dry. So we're just putting a little purple in here. That's going to be the basis for our shadow. And we'll pull that shadow all the way off the edge of the canvas. There we go. And we're going to put a tree in over here too, so I'm going to actually get started with that shadow just moving all the way in over to where the pine tree on the left is. And I'll let that go all the way across the canvas. I'm going to mix in a couple more colors. So we have our purple, and it's sort of blending with the white that we just put on underneath the shadow where we did our snow. I'm going to pick up a little bit of blue. I've got the turquoise blue. If you don't have turquoise blue, don't worry. Just go ahead and use whatever blue that you have and just add a little bit of that to the shadow. Just blend that right on in. And we'll pick up a little bit more purple. And so we're having more of the purple on the edge of the shadow. And we've got more of the blue on the inside of the shadow. There we go. So now we've got the idea of the shadow. We've got a nice start on our sky here. So let's go to our medium-sized brush. And now we're going to take some dark green and some purple. And we're just going to create the basis for our pine trees here. We want to have the edges irregular. We want to be able to see like little branches coming out from our trees. And we'll want to curve the bottoms just a little bit. We're going to mix purple with our dark green, and we want the trees to be a little bit darker in the center where the sun can't get through. So let's just start there. I've got the purple, and let's just start to just dab the paint on in the center of our tree, and then we'll come back and do the edges. So just dab that right on in. All the way down to the shadow that we created. We're going to make that a little darker, and we're also going to give it just a little bit of a curve too. There we go. And the same thing with our other tree. We'll go ahead and just give that a little bit of a curved edge. The tree in the middle, offset just a little bit, so I don't think we have to worry so much about seeing the shadow underneath of it. And then we'll just keep on dabbing this purple paint right on in. I'm going pretty quickly, but you know, you can stop the video anytime. Just stop it anytime you need, and you can catch up. I'm going to use more green on the tree in the middle. So I've got the green on my brush. And still some purple. I didn't even have to rinse that out because it's fine if those colors blend together. So get that in. And we'll just go all the way down here. Just keep see how I'm just tapping that right on in, blending it together as I tap. And that's the dark green and the purple right on down. All right, let's get some more dark green and just start to create the idea of some branches here on this pine tree. And we don't want it to be too perfectly formed. You think about the Christmas trees that you've had in the past, the live Christmas trees, and you know, the branches don't create a smooth outline, do they? They really go different directions, and they curve downward. The branches curve downward, so kind of think of that as you're putting your branches in. And once I get the branches in on this tree, I'll hold this up to the camera so you can see it a little better. See how I'm curving those branches and making them very irregular, and they're creating just an interesting silhouette, which we're going to add to as we put the shading of our snow. Pick up a little purple too. And just keep dabbing those branches right on in. And however that comes out is fine. You don't need to worry about them looking a certain way, but do try to get the kind of irregular edges as you put those branches in. And you want to blend that in. Of course, we're going to be putting the snow over the top, so don't worry too much about creating a lot of different shadows right now on the branches. Just keep working that right on in with the edge of your brush there, all the way down to the snow. And we'll put a little more green in here. And get this to looking a little more irregular. Those branches are going to go all the way over towards the tree in the middle. I hope everyone's having fun doing all this dabbing. I know I really enjoy it. And it would be so perfect if while you're painting this, it's snowing outside. Wouldn't that be great? I'm just going to hold this up so you can kind of see how I've dabbed that tree in. You can see how there's a lot of interesting looking edges here. And so we're going to start doing the same thing with this tree. And we don't want anything to be too regular looking. And then we'll go on to the third one. So just keep your dabbing up. However you're doing it, I'm sure that it's fine. Add a bit more green to our tree, and then let it come further over towards our tree in the middle. And they sort of blend right in together there. And the thing that will separate them is when we start to put the snow on. There we go. That one's looking pretty good now. All right, let's go on over to the top of this one. And we'll add a few branchy looking things coming off here. But honestly, however you do this, it will be just fine. Part of the charm of this painting is the palette and the colors. So even if the trees are not formed just the way that you want them to, it's still going to come out looking very nicely, I'm sure. All right, let's get on to this other lovely tree over here on the left, and we'll get a little green to mix in there too. And give it some nice little branches there. I just added a little bit of water to my brush because it seemed like that the paint was getting a little bit thick and my branches weren't going on as easily there. And we just keep tapping it right on in. And we'll pick up a little more purple and a little more green. And let's get some nice branches coming out here. Isn't that something how those triangles that we created are now really becoming these lovely trees? So my friend that took the photo for me, where she lives, she looks out onto the field and actually sees cows. Not her cows, but the neighbors off in the distance have cows, which is very nice. It's very beautiful to look out at the horizon and see the cows right at the base of the Blue Ridge Mountains there. I've painted this painting a few times with different groups, and I think these are the fattest trees that I've made. Of course, it comes out a little bit differently each time, which is fun. And this is the first time I've used this shaped canvas, so it's interesting to see that difference. Okay, let me hold that up for you. And some of you may want to stop before you put the snow in. Maybe you don't really want the snow on your trees. Maybe you like the trees just the way they are. Whatever you want to do with that is absolutely fine. If you prefer to have it just like this, then I think it will still be a very nice painting. So we're going to give that just, oops, sorry about that. We're going to give that just a moment to dry. Let me readjust my camera because I sort of tripped on the tripod there. So let's give our trees just a few minutes to dry. And we're going to go over to the left and put this tree in over to the left that has the bare branches, this deciduous tree that has lost all its leaves. Make sure that you keep, because your paint's been out for a while now, you might need to add a little bit of water to it to make sure that it's nice and thin. We're going to start at the top and kind of create a nice trunk for ourselves here. I'm going to start right up at the top of the canvas and just create a branch that comes on down into the middle of the tree, and then maybe another one off to the left. And then just pull that right on down. We've sort of created a place for it here over on the left. Get your tree trunk, come all the way down here and perch right on that shadow that we created. So there's the beginning of our tree. We got a nice little curve in and get a little bit more paint. And let's put a few more of these branches in. The thing to remember about the branches is that you want them to be nicely curved. You don't want them to attach to the tree in a way that looks too square. The branches are really graceful and curved. Let's put another one that maybe goes way up in the sky there and then comes down. There we go. So we have a nice one there. And we'll just thicken that up a little bit. I'm going to switch to a smaller brush because I'm not getting as fine of a look to those branches as I'd like. So I've got this little brush. I'm going to try this one. And just add a few more branches. Here's one. And we'll put another one. Goes off from this one and up into the sky there. And let's add some more branches. Now we're adding really tiny ones. But all of them are very gracefully connected to one another. Nice curved branches. Let's put a few more in. And you don't even actually have to touch the branches to the tree. You can just get them close to the limb that you've created, and that will be just fine. And we'll come back and put a little white on these after we've finished our snow here to kind of create the idea of snow laying on the branches. Really have fun with these branches. But just the important thing is, you want to be very light with your touch as you put those in. Let's make another one that comes right off of the main one there. Wherever you want those. Trees really do have a lot of branches. I'm going to put a few right down here. And the further they get out from the main branch, of course, then the more delicate looking they become. There, that's nice. Maybe a few more back up here of the really tiny branches. Put in as many as you want. You don't have to put in as many as I am, whatever gives the idea of the branches, but it doesn't have to be so many that you tire of making branches. So at this point, I'm going to stop the video and give the trees a chance to dry, and then we'll pick right back up and put our snow on our wonderful trees.